government toward the development of a nuclear weapon. According to the Times, quote, with only 1 month left before a deadline to complete a nuclear deal with Iran, international inspectors have reported that Tehran's stockpile of nuclear fuel has increased about 20% over the last 18 months of negotiations, partially undercutting the Obama administration's contention that the Iranian program had, quote, been frozen during that period. Here with reaction is the co-author of Climate Change, The Fact. Columnist Mark Stein is with us. It's almost, to me, breathtaking that this is where we are. In the course of these negotiations, they cheated in this instance, as identified by the New York Times. We discovered another nuclear facility that they had hidden. They said the destruction of Israel is non-negotiable. The top mullahs are chanting death to America. They're the #1 state sponsor of terror, and they're fighting multiple proxy wars. And still Obama wants to make this deal. With his words, they'll have zero breakout time in 11 years. Why?
Right.
Can you explain this? It's inexplicable.
Well, yeah, I think they concluded, the Iranians concluded, that these talks exist because the Western powers lack the will to prevent them getting a nuclear weapon. Once you reach the conclusion that Obama and the P5 permanent members of the Security Council are actually not going to do anything to stop you getting a nuclear weapon, then you can join the talks and string along the talks because you know that Obama and these other fellas, John Kerry, they like chit-chatting, they like shooting the breeze. You can string them along for 18 months, and if you're lucky, you'll get an agreement plus nuclear weapons. And that's really what Iran's goal was. And that's what's amazing to me. They're actually within reach of getting all sanctions lifted, being reintegrated into the world community, which Obama has set as his target, and at the same time also becoming a nuclear power. In other words, what didn't they get? What didn't they get?
They get the nuclear weapon. They get a $50 billion signing bonus. They get all their money back, so that will facilitate the advancement of their nuclear program. Well, what did you think? So the New York Times breaks this story about a 20% increase. Again, that was supposed to be frozen. And you got jobs for jihadis, Marie Harf, in a Twitter war with the New York Times, even though these numbers came from the IAEA and their inspections.
Right.
It's not like they made up these numbers at the New York Times.
No, this is the official UN body, the IAEA, which has established that Iran, all the time it was in Geneva, in Lausanne, participating in these talks, and is supposed to be destroying 96% of this stuff in the months after a deal, has actually spent the months before the deal increasing it by 20%. And if you look at what has happened in recent months with the fading of American power in the region, it has been matched by the rise of Iran. Iraq's future essentially will be determined by Iran and ISIS. America is irrelevant to that. Yemen's future will be determined by Iran. Syria's future will be determined by Iran and ISIS. Maybe ultimately Saudi Arabia's and Jordan's future will be determined by Iran and ISIS. And the United States is simply not a player anymore. It has effectively withdrawn from the scene in the last 6 years.
It's interesting you say that, because the president claims that not only is he not divisive, but he also says that under his leadership, America is the most respected country on earth. Here's what he said.
People don't remember, when I came into office, the United States, in world opinion, ranked below China and just barely above Russia. And today, once again, the United States is the most respected country on earth. And part of that, I think, is because of the work that we did to re-engage the world and say that we want to work with you as partners with mutual interest and mutual respect. It's on that basis that we were able to end 2 wars while still focusing on the very real threat of terrorism.
Now, wait a minute. China is now pursuing their territorial ambitions. Russia, we know Putin has no respect for him whatsoever. We know that the Egyptians, Jordanians, the Saudis, and the Israelis have decided to go it alone. And I have that on first-hand knowledge that they've decided that. How does he make such a statement?
Yeah, this is the post-American world. By the way, for one thing, Sean, it's pathetic for the leader of the global superpower to be boasting that he's come #1 in a miscongeniality poll. I mean, this in itself is incredible. I can't recall Winston Churchill or Bismarck ever standing up and saying, hey, the world had a Miss World competition and I came first in the swimsuit round. It's pathetic. But it also neglects the fact that ranking is, as much as anything, a measure of American irrelevance in the world. As you mentioned, all the Arab countries, the Saudis and the Gulf monarchies, who are now Israel's best friend. The foreign ministers of all the Gulf states and Saudi Arabia are on the phone to Israel every night because they know they're having to go it alone in the post-American world. The Czechs and the Poles and the Baltic states are beginning to get that message. Out in the South China Sea, they're beginning to get that message. It's very easy to win the miscongeniality award when you're doing nothing. The other recent poll of global respect, for whatever that means, was a BBC one, and the #1 country was Germany and the #2 country was Canada. If you become irrelevant to global affairs in the way that Germany has been in the last 60 years, it's not, and the way America has gone in the last 6 years, then it's easy to be miscongeniality.
Let me play. Obama goes on Channel 2 in Israel, one of their bigger channels, and he attacks Netanyahu, says he's driven by fear, and then suggests that Israel's in danger of losing their credibility. I'm thinking, Netanyahu just won by a landslide in spite of Obama's so-called influence and attempts to help defeat him, and he's still angry about the speech, but I want to get your take on it. Watch this.
I think Prime Minister Netanyahu is somebody who's predisposed to think of security first, to think perhaps that peace is naive, to see the worst possibilities as opposed to the best possibilities in Arab partners or Palestinian partners. And so I do think that right now those politics and those fears are driving the government's response.
Fears? They're firing rockets by the thousands into this country. Right. What is he talking about?
Yeah, he's talking as if this is somehow irrational. When he says Israel's credibility is on the line, no, Israel's existence is on the line. Netanyahu has to do something that Obama doesn't. Obama can bunk off and play golf and go on television with Jay-Z and Beyonce and do all this stuff. Netanyahu goes to work every morning knowing that if he makes the slightest miscalculation of the psychology of his neighboring states, it's the end of Israel's existence. It's gone. And he does this against a background, for example, where there are murderous attacks on the Jewish Museum in Brussels, where there are attacks on synagogues, on schools, in the wider Jewish diaspora, and in which Jew hate has in effect metastasized. And so this idea that he's somehow some eccentric fellow who's just got a bee in his bonnet about national security, and why doesn't he realize it's all about transgender rights like the rest of us do? I mean, this is a completely pitiful response from a guy who's sitting thousands of miles away from it in Washington and doesn't have to live with the realities that Obama does, that Netanyahu does.
And he says that climate change is the biggest military national security threat we have. Here's my take. Tell me if you agree or disagree.
Costas Ramadi, climate change, the rising seas swept away all those American weapons in Ramadi. Amazing.
Right. I think that Obama is insecure. That Bibi is smarter than him, that Bibi is tougher than him, that he's more principled than him, more courageous than him. He understands evil in our time, and I think Obama knows it. And that's why I think it's personal. What's your take on why you think it's so personal?
I think it is personal. I do think he's an insecure man, and that leads him to, actually, apart from anything else, just some remarks in appallingly bad taste when he said, apparently to David Axelrod, that he was, in effect, the first Jewish president. He's the nearest to a Jew who's ever sat in the Oval Office.
Unbelievable.
And that's completely ridiculous. And I do think he understands that, in a sense, not just Netanyahu, but Putin and Ayatollah Khamenei in Tehran, that all these guys are smarter than him, in a sense that they're keeping their eye on the prize. And he seems to be just doing things out of kind of strange, weird psychological insecurities. But it's very odd. It's personal with Netanyahu. He doesn't like the way Netanyahu walked into his Congress and all that kind of thing.
And then he's trying to get along with the mullahs. All right, Mark Stein, good to see you, sir.